course, me and Al, we going back and forth about, the numbers. We're not going back and forth about anything else. We just going back and forth about the numbers. All in all, I have two companies, that reach out to me that, wanted to give me and Spence $25 million guaranteed. $25 million guaranteed up front. So a real guy like myself, I call Spence. Hey bro, look, listen, you know what I mean? I got this company that's willing to give us $25 million a piece, guaranteed. What's up? What you gonna do? He like, 25 million, what about the back end? I'm like, dude, listen. If they make their money back, then we get 80-20. You know what I mean? It's simple math. I said, man, we got people all still in the fight. They got the fire sticks. He laughed. He like, man, I got a fire stick too. I'm like, see? I'm like, man, ain't nobody really buying, pay-per-views no more.
Hey, you heard him right. He said, me and Al, we've been going back and forth. About what, Crawford? The numbers. We've been going back and forth about the numbers. We ain't talking about nothing else. We ain't going back and forth about nothing else but the numbers. Y'all heard what Bud just said, didn't you? Remember, I did a video on my channel. Y'all remember that video? Numbers don't lie. Go and check that video out, some of y'all that didn't watch it, and you'll see how I break down the numbers when it comes to Bud Crawford, the numbers when it comes to Errol Spence. And see, the reason why they kept going back and forth, and they wasn't talking about nothing else but the numbers, because I believe that Al Heyman has given Bud Crawford a snapshot of his numbers. And he's also given Bud Crawford a snapshot of Errol Spence's numbers. You see? Yeah. He reminded Bud Crawford on that telephone there, on that call. Spence, my client, you know what he does in Live Gate. You know what his numbers are, right? With Spence, my client, you know what he does when it comes to fans buying pay-per-view, right? You know that you're going to take less money. You do understand that in business, right? You know that my client Spence is going to take the lion's share of the revenue. You do realize that, right? And you also know that Spence is going to take the lion's share of the pay-per-view revenue as well. You do realize that, right? Okay, good. Now that you realize that, because numbers don't lie, what do you think about these numbers as far as the revenue and the money is concerned? That's what I believe happened. Those are the words that Bud Crawford is not saying, but I'm saying it because I'm a boxing manager and I know how it works. Now, what was Bud Crawford's response to that? He said it himself. He said that he have at least two companies that have reached out to him and was willing to offer him and Spence $25 million apiece to fight on their platform. We can assume and speculate that that's BLK Prime, but we don't know because he didn't say the name of the company or the people that came to him with this proposal. And he basically said, hey, I called up Errol Spence myself. And I said, Errol Spence, we can make $25 million apiece, right? And Errol Spence's response allegedly was, what about the back end? And Crawford said his response was, back end, don't worry about no back end. We just going to get $25 million apiece. And if it is a situation or a scenario where they get to recoup some of their funds back, then we can take the 80-20 split. But it's a $25 million guaranteed up front, so it really shouldn't matter. I have a question. Actually, I have two questions. Let me ask my first one, then I'll ask my second one. First question. Why is Bud Crawford countering an offer through a proposal first and then a contract with Al Heyman by representing another company that has nothing to do with the negotiations between Spence and Crawford? Why is he advocating for another company that he himself is not even investing in? He doesn't even own the company. He's not a part owner of any of these company or with these people that's offering allegedly $25 million a piece. Why is he counter offering Al Heyman by bringing in a company that has nothing to do with any of the logistics of this negotiation? Remember when I did that interview on YSM on August 30th, when I said to the fans in that interview, I said, Bo Mack or Terence Crawford cannot what? What'd I say? Out negotiate Al Heyman. You see, I proved my point here. Thank you, Bud. And so did Bud. He proved my point too. Because when someone offers you a proposal and then you agree to those terms and then they offer you a contract, initially, you're supposed to say, I've already agreed to the terms and conditions of the proposal. I'm going to sign the contract. So apparently, Al Heyman and Spence's team assumed, like any other business person would assume, that Terence Crawford would sign the contract that he got in August. But that's not what happened. What happened was Bud Crawford gave them a counter offer. He gave them a counter offer with a streaming platform that's going to distribute the fight between him and Spence on pay-per-view. That's what he said. Now, my second question. Bud, if people are stealing pay-per-views by streaming them for free, and people are doing this through the Fire Stick, and if people are not buying no more pay-per-views anymore, like you said, then why are you fighting on pay-per-view through BLK Prime for $39.99 against David A? Oh, okay. Let's get back to the tape.
One thing about me and I would say the difference between me and the difference between Spence is I'm really my own boss now, and he's not. He got to go through Al. He got to go through, his team and ask them if he can do certain things that I don't have to no more. Yeah, I might have had to when I was with Top Rank because I was signed to Top Rank and they was my promotional company. So of course I had to go to Top Rank and ask them to get me this fight or do this for me or do that for me because I was obligated to do certain things by their standard because I was signed to them. But now that I'm a free agent and I'm free to do whatever I want, I'm the one sitting at the table. I'm the one that's talking directly to these high individuals. Errol Spence not talking to, Terence Crawford about the fight. Errol Spence wasn't at the table. Errol Spence can't tell you or show you a contract that, says Terence Crawford, Errol Spence.
One thing about me, or should I say the difference between me and Spence, I'm really my own boss and he's not. That's what Bud Crawford just said. Y'all heard him. Now, we have a problem. We have a problem. The problem is that Terence Bud Crawford has been misled. The problem is Terence Bud Crawford do not understand business. And apparently he doesn't understand the business of boxing. He doesn't understand the concept of business. Because if he did, he would understand that being your own boss and being a free agent are two totally different things. He said, now that I'm a free agent, I can do anything that I want. I'm the one sitting at the table. I'm the one that's talking to high individuals. Errol Spence is not sitting at the table negotiating. Errol Spence is not talking to high individuals. Errol Spence can't produce a contract that says Terence Bud Crawford or Errol the True Spence Jr. on there, but I can. Y'all know that there's a scripture that says this: pride comes before the fall. There's another scripture that says, if you exalt yourself, you will be humbled. But if you humble yourself, you will be exalted. And so with that being said, Terence Bud Crawford, I got something for you today. Because you are criticizing Errol Spence Jr. for having good representation. You're criticizing that man. And here's the thing. You know why Spence wasn't at the table during the negotiations? Do you want to know why? Because he don't have to be at the table, because he has good representation. Just like you said, his representation is so good that his representation is all about looking for what? The best interest of their fighter. You were talking about Al Heyman. You see that? And how good of a man Al Heyman is, and how tremendous of a job Al Heyman is doing. You see, Errol Spence has good representation, and you don't have any representation at all. And that's how you're able to sit at the table and negotiate on your behalf, because you're a free agent, not because you're your own boss. Because if you really want to be technical about it, every professional athlete is their own boss. Don't take my word for it. Let's look at what the IRS says. Now I had to put my tax practitioner hat on. The IRS calls anyone who is an independent contractor a sole proprietorship. In other words, you are the business and the business is you. And this is why the IRS justify charging you, a sole proprietor, 2 taxes, right? Now, let's get into taxes just for a minute while I have my tax practitioner hat on. Bud Crawford, if you are a boss, like you say Errol Spence is not a boss, or your own boss, then you would have your own promotion company. If you are a boss, your own boss, you would have good representation, but you don't have any representation. In fact, if you want to look at the taxes, not Terence Crawford, Errol Spence. What state does Errol Spence live in? You guessed it, the state of Texas. And guess what? The state of Texas is a tax exempt state. You see that? So not only will he be exempted from paying income tax to the state, but he also has Man Down Promotions, his own promotion company. So now he has his LLC that will do what? It will then, with the LLC, through his other boxing income that he's generating, it's going to reduce his tax liability. Yeah. So the boss in this situation is not you, it's actually Spence. Because he's saving on state taxes, and he has a business that's going to help him reduce his tax liability. And he has good representation. So I got something for you, Terence Crawford. I got to dust it off because I didn't give this award away for a few weeks now. Bud Crawford, I'm probably the only one that's going to have enough courage to do this. But this is why all of the viewers are watching this channel with Manager Marty. Bud Crawford, you're going to need to get you a pair of these. Yeah, Bud. You're going to need a pair of these. You're going to need 2 pair of these, matter of fact. You're going to need a pair of these to fight David A. And you're going to need a pair of these because you criticizing Spence when he has good representation. He owns his own business and he's saving on his taxes. And you're criticizing him for having good representation and being his own boss. That doesn't make any kind of sense to me. Oh, yeah. Let's roll the tape. We got more analyzing to do.
I proposed it to Al. I hit up Al. I'm like, Al, listen, you know, man, I got this big hedge fund company out here. You know, they claim they know you. Not one, but two. Not one, but two. You know what I mean? Two companies willing to put 20 plus million in both of our pocket, guaranteed. Al tell me straight up, I'm not letting nobody touch this fight. Like, all right, cool. But I'm like, why? He like, why would you want to put a ceiling on yourself? Why you want to put a cap on yourself? I'm like, well, that's not putting a cap on myself if this company is taking a risk. And, you know, risk, high risk, you know what I mean, high reward. If that's the case, you know, I can't seem to see a fight that's been doing millions.
So, Bud Crawford, we clearly see that he does not understand the difference between being a free agent and being your own boss, but we've already covered that. Now, because he's a free agent, he's talking directly to Spence, of course, and he's already talking to Al Heyman again. He said that when Spence didn't call him back, he picked up the phone and called Al Heyman. And he told Al Heyman about the hedge fund and how, you know, these people are going to offer $25 million apiece to him and Spence, and they claim that they know you. Stop right there. When you, your own boss, as a business owner, okay, many of you that's watching this, you already know that I have experience in business ownership, right? One of the things that we like to do in the business world is called two words: due diligence. See, when you're doing due diligence, if you're your own boss, you don't have to speculate whether someone's claiming their background or who they know. When you do your due diligence, you will know that. And if these people that represent this hedge fund that's offering all this money, if they really did know Al Heyman, this is poor business practice, because everybody at this point knows that Al Heyman is the manager / advisor for Errol Spence. So why isn't the representatives of this hedge fund or this organization or this pay-per-view or subscription-based platform, why aren't they reaching out directly to Al Heyman if they know he's representing the other fighter that they want to bring on their platform with Terence Crawford? That's a bad business ethic. Now, let's get back to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford. When Terence Crawford said all of that to Al Heyman, as a boxing manager, let me tell you how Al Heyman could have possibly interpreted that. Hold on for a minute. In May, I actually gave you an initial proposal. It seemed like you agreed to the terms. I sent you a contract nearly 60 days after, in August. I gave you what I thought the numbers should look like was fair to you based on your numbers or the lack thereof, and based on my client's numbers, Errol Spence. I gave you everything that we were willing to do to be able to satisfy you. And instead of you agreeing to the contract, which basically you agreed to the proposal, you're telling me about a different company that reached out to you on behalf of you fighting my client. They didn't reach directly out to me, the boxing manager of my client Spence, but they reached out to you, a free agent, your own boss, with no representation. And you want me, a reputable businessman, a reputable boxing manager who already have, watch this, ladies and gentlemen, who already have a contractual relationship with the biggest boxing streaming platform in the country in Showtime and or Fox. And you want me to distance myself from them, break my contractual agreement I have with Showtime and or Fox, and do business with you because someone's telling you that they're willing to give you and my client $25 million? Why would you even put a cap on yourself? $25 million with no back end? You're putting a cap on yourself. We could actually generate $100 million They talking about 50 million. Forget 50. We can possibly generate 100 million. Because this is the fight that all the fans want to see on a bigger platform with Showtime and or Fox. Ladies and gentlemen, Terence Bud Crawford does not sound like a good businessman. Terence Bud Crawford does not sound like he knows the business of boxing. And that's actually sad when I, a boxing manager, hear that, because one of the main reasons why I got into the business of boxing is to empower and educate and represent fighters with integrity that do not understand this business. And here we got Terence Crawford criticizing Errol Spence, criticizing Al Heyman, criticizing the fact that they won't acquiesce to his counter. They're the ones that initiated the whole process, but now he's coming with this counter. And now he's criticizing them? Moving right along.